TIHA Archival Conversations, brought to you by Trans and Intersex History Africa, TIHA. Today is Friday, the 9th of 2025. Let's not forget that, and happy Friday to everyone. Well, at TIHA, ours is to collect, protect, and preserve the lived experiences of our communities. And every Friday, we bring you powerful and intimate conversations with African, trans, and intersex people from across the continent and the diaspora. These are more than just stories, they are our histories. You can find all the episodes for past shows right here on Facebook and on YouTube, but most importantly on our website alongside our other archival materials. You see our website has been placed on the screen. That is the website for TIHA, Trans and Intersex History Africa. So welcome to the TIHA Archival Conversations. And before we dive into the program, I would like to remind you about two very important events that we honor here at TIHA. This week, May 5th to May 11th, is Trans Plus History Week. It is a week where we celebrate the histories internationally, globally, of trans plus people in the world. And it shows you how important that the work we do at TIHA is. So may you find a moment to celebrate it. But for now, let us recognize it here as we go ahead with today's episode of our archival stories. I would also like to remind you that next week will be Idahobit, International Day Against Transphobia and Homophobia and biphobia. We recognize and honor that day as well, and we shall be our show next Friday will be about this Idahobit, and it will be a different kind of show and setting because we will welcome any of you who would like to contribute to the conversation. We will basically just be talking about those phobias, make them known out there, and other issues pertaining to our movement as LGBTIQ plus people in Africa. The theme for this year's Idahobit is power of community, and that is why we would like to bring the community onto the stage here for those conversations. So please look out for that show next Friday. But for this Friday today, we are hosting yet another very important activist from the continent. This Friday, we are honored to welcome Purity Tumukwasibwe, a proud trans woman and passionate activist whose journey spans continents, and you will see how. Originally from Uganda and now based in Sweden, Purity holds a degree in social sciences from Makerere University. Her leadership and advocacy have made waves across Uganda, Kenya, and Sweden. In fact, across Europe now. From coordinating Uganda's first bombastic magazine and working with USAID, to founding refugee-led initiatives in Kenya, including the Refugee Coalition of East Africa and the Refugee TRANS Initiative, Purity's dedication to justice and visibility is truly inspiring. In Sweden, she continues her vital work as Executive Director of Queerstion Media and as an anti-racism consultant with IGLEO, International Gay and Lesbian Youth Organization. She also serves on the boards of Transgender Europe, Transamens Sweden, she will correct me on that, and Rainbow Refugees Sweden. But beyond all of these achievements, Purity holds her most cherished title close to heart, and that is mother. Mother to her miracle baby, Asante. Welcome to the show, Purity. We are so glad to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me, Victor.
It's so good to see you, and you look
So good to
stunning
see you
as
too.
ever.
Thank you.
I, your video is kind of. Are you able to make it a landscape in landscape mode? No. Yes. Oh, you had got it. Yes.
Like this?
Yes, that's wonderful. Because
Okay.
even if you were bigger than me, I would be so happy because this is about you. This is about
Mm,
your story. It is
mm,
your moment. Thank you for
mm.
showing up, Purity.
You're most
Purity, how
welcome.
is Asante?
Asante is great. She's 4 months now, and she's the most peaceful baby. And I have never felt utmost joy and gratitude and gratefulness until
You
I
are
had
the
Asante.
listeners out there. Purity is a new mother.
Yes.
Purity is a new mother whose story to motherhood and in motherhood we are all watching on social media. And
Mm,
as a trans person, I am very, very proud of Purity. And in fact, I feel like I'm a new uncle and practicing to be a good uncle to Asante. Thank you so much, Purity, for sharing that story. The second
yeah.
question I
Mm,
want to ask is
mm,
why the name Purity? Because that's a rare
mm,
name, but a very,
mm,
very heavy, positively heavy name.
mm.
Mhm.
That's a good question, Victor. Why I chose my name Purity?
Yeah.
I mean, like other trans girls usually just go with the flow of the most beautiful name and stuff like that. But then mine was symbolic. When I came out as a trans woman, I lost
Yes.
almost everything. I didn't know how much impact that could cause when I came out. I didn't
Yes.
know the magnitude of the impact.
Right.
So it was like shocking and surprising, and even when I knew what to expect. And so among the things that that transphobia that I faced was everything dirty. You are this dirty. You are not a woman. You can never have children. Can you imagine? I'm a mother now. Anyway, you can never. So it was like everything I was made look like filth. And so as for me, I had to interject and say like, oh no, I need a name that represents me, that when the world is choosing to say everything they say about who I am, I'll go back to this name and I know that I am pure, I have a pure heart, I have pure intentions, I have purity within me that flows not only in what the world doesn't see, but the community around me sees it. And so then I was like, that is it. Purity is the name. So that's how I came up with it.
It's a powerful name, Purity. Can we very briefly go to why Asante for your baby child?
Mm. That's if we finish this question, you can even say bye and I go. Because that's
All right. Why Asante?
why Asante. I have longed to become a parent even when I was a small person, a small child, really.
Mhm.
I always loved children, and I'm a last born anyway. But for me, motherhood had always been in my veins. And even almost when I was in Kenya, I was called Mama. I was like the
Yeah.
mother of the community, you know. And
Yes.
even when I was in Uganda, I used to house trans kids and LGBTQ persons at my house in so
Yes.
many ways, and I took them as children. But then for me, every time I thought about ever becoming a parent, I didn't see a possibility. I
Mhm.
didn't see a possibility in terms of stability. I
Mhm.
was in between migrations. You
Mhm.
know, I am from Uganda and now I'm in Kenya in hopelessness, and now I am in Sweden. And so there was no even time for me to calm down and say, how how do you even have a child when you do not have stability within you? You don't have a proper identity of where you fit. you
Right.
know. And then when I started stabilizing here in Sweden, then I started asking myself, how do I even have a child? Because I didn't have information on how possible that could be. And I also thought that what my parents or my family or the transports told me that probably I could not give birth to children. You see, this is what we see the anti-gender movements use from Africa, more so in Uganda and East Africa, that at least you say you are a woman, but you cannot actually have children, you know? And so for me, it was a double-edged sword. I also didn't have enough inspiration around me. Most of the trans persons around me didn't even have to tackle that topic of children because it's very painful. More so when there are no possibilities, or when you don't even want to have a child, when you have had a difficult life and you have to explain. But for me, I really wanted. And then when the possibility came, it came when I least expected it. It was, I actually just woke up and something was happening. And we are trying to have a baby. And that whole experience of even trying, it was like a whole year of trying. Nobody knew. I kept it to myself and my partner were doing it by ourselves. It was painful in so many ways. It was ups and downs. And at some point we thought probably it's not even possible to have children anymore. That was hopeless. And then pew, Asante is born. And so when she was born, I already had the name to say thank you. Because for me, Asante has saved me. My whole entire who I am has been saved by this baby. So that's how, it's gratefulness.
So proud of you, Purity, and thank you for sharing the joys of Asante with us. And just for purposes, the real purpose of these conversations, to you, our future siblings and children, the year is 2025, and Purity just got a baby. She's a trans woman. She has a baby called Asante. Whenever you find this recording, please remember her. Now, Purity, we rushed ahead, and we will move a little bit back into your story, which is okay that we talked, because for me, Asante being the opening of this conversation is perfect. It is perfect. Yeah, but I would like you, Purity, to take us back to your early years in Uganda. What were some of the first moments when you began to understand your identity, and how did your environment meaning school, home, church, streets and everything, the community, how did they respond to that journey?
My journey is quite interesting in so many ways, really. One, I was growing up, I was a little privileged. I come from a little privileged family. I don't want to go through, the family structure, but then I didn't lack so much of the basics. I was protected by a loving or hardworking family in that kind of sense. And I was also a last born, so of 7 girls. So, and I came at the extreme end of my mother's journey to motherhood, because she was 50 when she had me, and so I was like the darling. I was like a miracle baby. At the same time, patriarchy says that when you have a male child, that's huge. When you have had actually 7, So I was raised in that environment. But then also, I was raised in a way that I was expressing myself as a girl in so many ways, even before I understood it.
At a very young age.
At a very young age. One, my mother unintentionally used to dress me up in girls' clothes. Because that's what she knew. She had 7 girls, I guess.
Yes.
So I was probably taking over historical clothes that she had bought with my other sisters.
That was good for you.
Yeah, exactly. So that was, good for me. And then I was surrounded by girls, all my sisters. around. So the inspiration was probably, if I had to think about the cisgender men, it could be my father. My father was a very, a busy government official who never had time. So I was mostly with my mom. So I expressed myself more feminine as a child, dressed up, more feminine, until when my dad started having issues around it. And probably when I was maybe 7, 8, and that's when he could start saying that, okay, but this child is actually becoming more feminine. I think you need, as a mother, my mom, you need to do something about it. And, don't buy these clothes, buy these clothes. So now the awareness started hitting in. And then, my father teaching me, for example, how to sit. She used to actually open my legs. Sorry.
You were there being a diva, and he's like, no.
And he opens my legs, like, women, women sit, close their legs, but men, they open their legs. I'm like, oh my goodness.
And that was very weird for you.
Yeah, exactly. But then when I went into adolescence, so much really changed.
That is when you enter adolescence?
Yeah, when I enter adolescence. And when I was probably going to secondary school, even when I wasn't so much cautious about my femininity, it started being pronounced out there that, okay, your father is really questioning how you are behaving. And now then I got a secondary school when I was, a boys' school, Ntare school.
Yes.
And so in Ntare school, that's when I got awakened that, oh my goodness, literally I am feminine. And it wasn't only how I walked, it wasn't even how I behaved, but it was also how my voice, for example. They used to think that my voice was quite feminine in a way. Victor, I think Victor went off.
Victor is still there. You can continue.
Okay. Okay, so that's then in my you went off. I think I couldn't see you.
Okay, the truth is that having children causes this. So she had started some music, and I needed to rush. And
okay. So
sorry.
Yeah, in my adolescence, then I got awakened in so many senses, in a sense that I had already known that I am attracted to the men.
Yes.
And I am, I'm still in the male version of myself. So definitely now I started noticing the biggest change.
Yes.
For me also around that time, I didn't know much.
Sorry about this. You were in boarding school at that point.
Yeah, I was in a boarding school.
And was your expression coming out at that point still?
It was coming out naturally, that I wasn't noticing it.
Yeah.
It's again the students that were noticing it. So the bullying started then, that, you are so feminine. Why do you walk like that? How come your clothes actually are like this? I didn't, So then that's when I started being cautious of who I was. And then of course now also my attractions were different. So then now I got to know it was a whole lot of confusion. Yeah. But then also in Ntare school, something else happened that until now I'm like, wow. Even when I was being bullied as too feminine, every time the school had games and sports, mostly music, dance, and drama, and they want somebody to act like a girl or a mother or whatever, they were looking for me. I was the mother of that.
You had very rare opportunities, I'm telling you.
Yeah, exactly. So at some point, I could get away with being feminine because they needed me, and I was quite so. They didn't need to train me. I was feminine in so many senses. I didn't, my adolescence, I never grew facial hair or beards. I literally grew beards when probably I was like 30.
Wow.
So I had always not had, I had a very, soft, now my voice is a little bigger than it was then. So then, so it was like as a bittersweet. There is one group that actually bullies me that, oh, you are too feminine, or, calling you names. But there's a group that actually is happy that they have a girl who represents them.
Mm-hmm.
And then the issue of homosexuality in the school came in. I think you've heard about Ntari School being associated with. Oh, I hope I didn't have to mention Ntari School, but I have anyway.
Well, it is public knowledge.
Yeah, so there was a wave of the school thinking that there is a lot of homosexuality going on.
Yes.
It was somehow, boys were having fun,
Yeah.
Boys were having fun. I was seeing it, but then for me, I was still under conversion therapy. I hadn't even, so I didn't, I hated who I was.
Mm-hmm.
So even like thinking about kissing a boy was like, oh my goodness, like, what about God? I think, God, you need to change me.
Mm.
But when they were expelling students, when there was a big wave of homosexuality, they call it, then I was also expelled among the students,
Right, right.
And that's when I got even to know much about homosexuality. I did not know nothing.
You had no idea. Your life was just, you're getting attracted to who you're attracted to.
Yeah.
You're looking the way you are, naturally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So we were in Western Uganda, probably we are always behind news. We were always, nobody was even in the school knew what the word gay means. I only got to know the word gay when they were expelling us. And then also another one was when we were in papers, then because the school, when that happened, it was like a national scandal.
Right.
And we were put in so many newspapers. And so my name was there, my photo was there, and they were talking about homosexuality. So that's when I started even getting to know. So that's yeah.
Yeah, you brought us up to the level where you're almost going out of adolescence. But how did these early experiences that you're talking about, and that's both the challenges and those are the good moments and nice opportunities that every trans child would wish for, how did they shape your path then into activism? Because you're one of those unforgettable activists. You're one of those people who were very strong and out there at such a young age. You are a leader. You are a nurturer. You are a mentor. How did all those experiences from childhood, positive or negative, shape your path into activism and leadership within the trans and refugee movements? Because we also have read that you are a part of that organizing within the refugee communities. How did those experiences of childhood, adolescence, up to school, how did they shape you into activism?
Yeah, thank you so much. That's an important question. Like I said, one, I also would love to say that I was more privileged than so many trans siblings back home.
Yes.
And when all that happened, still I continued with education, and I finished my high school, even when it was hard, even when my parents were always, it was like a struggle to finish university. But then I had already come out
university.
Yeah, exactly. But when I was at the university, and I was also privileged that when I was at the university, I started working. My sister then was working in the Ministry of Gender, and my first job was when the Queen was coming to the Chogam, during Chogam.
Chogam, yes.
Yeah, so I was among the Gambano Nogus.
Hey!
That were working during Chogam anyway, and I was in, and I was just in my first year at the university. So Then I had started meeting community members, you know, friends whom I meet and they have been thrown out of their homes, and friends that I have met at the university. I loosened up a little bit, who never gotten any form of education and are struggling in so many senses. So at the university, I was in the hostel, but then at some point I had to rent my own, you know, apartment, and then I used to host them, you know, bring them to my house. It was unbelievable to see community members going through that, you know. And so for me, my activism started like that. Then when I started working, when
it started by you holding community members that were in need.
Yeah, exactly. So I wasn't in the mainstream spaces. I wasn't extremely exposive of what I am doing, and I didn't want also to be in the media or stuff like that. But I was already doing that, and so when when I started working with USID, then I had to go back in the closet more. I needed to closet myself more, run away from the community, and take on this job
in order to keep it.
Yes, for such to keep it. And I was already been given ultimatums from my family. I was so lucky that my family was always looking out for me when it comes to work. And so they gave me an ultimatum as like, you know, we know you are dealing with homosexual things, but if you do it, we are done with you. Anything can happen. So then I was more in the closet, but in the spaces, you know, how we go to, you know, to bars and stuff like that. Spaces, and then I could still hold space for the community. I was living with them. I was supporting them in so many ways. But then when so much happened, when I was suspended, laid off from my work because of being a homosexual from USID. I can imagine from USID that actually you are laid off because you are homosexual.
Right.
Yeah. And so now,
of course, today it would be normal, but during those days, that is kind of a shocker.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So then I became a resilient. I was just ready to fight for my rights and those around me. And I think that's around the same time that Kasha was starting Bombastic magazine before the Kuchu Times.
Yeah.
And then they were looking for a coordinator. The first one, I even didn't know what I needed to do, you know, but because they needed a coordinator for a whole country to coordinate the magazine, and was working in the field a lot, you know, they chose to give me the job.
Yes.
And that opened my world.
Well, a special thank you and a special shout out to Kasha Jacqueline Nawagesera, founder of Bombastic Magazine, and that Purity just mentioned. It is important for us to honor those who have created these spaces for us.
Yeah, that was
I remember that around the times of Bombastic Magazine, there was a lot of challenges with safety and hunting, like they were hunting for all of you who are involved in that work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the biggest security risks that I have ever had. That's where my security issues started from. Because I remember I went to Western Uganda to distribute the magazine at the Anglican diocese, and almost the bishop himself almost closed us inside the church, and we were playing monkey hide and seek,
running from the bishop. Friends who are listening, this is a very big story, because even as Purity mentions Bombastic Magazine, it was the first LGBTIQ plus magazine in Uganda, right, Purity?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, so that is something to note. So the challenges, yes, you're in the church and the bishop has locked you in.
The bishop has locked us in, and are going under the tables, under the chairs. They opened the church.
Those were interesting days, because I remember every time we talk about the challenges during the bombastic magazine distribution, you hear stories such as the bishop locking you in the church and chasing you in the church while you're hiding under confession boxes and stuff. We also hear stories of where queer distributors, had to dive into dumpsters to hide from the police. People always wonder why we laugh, but that is how we deal with things.
Yeah, exactly. I remember I was with Rita and Sandra Ntevi.
Yes.
And at some point, I think Rita had to go into the river or something, and then had to hide around the river. I was like, I don't know how that happened, because the police was hunting us down. They couldn't believe the kind of magazines that were being distributed out there. And I remember driving my car from Tungamo to Mbarara in a very hilarious speed. I was a very speedy driver. I think my team still remembers me for driving against the police, because the police was hunting us, and I had to drive for our dear lives. So it was such an intense magazine. But then for me, I haven't seen that much resilience that the community showed. It was also something
that was amazing. And just a little pause here. I really need to make these disclaimers continuously. Purity is a storyteller, trust me, friends. So I just want to let you know that because of the trauma that most of us have, experienced, do not be surprised, especially for you, our future viewers who will find these archives. We start to laugh about the moments that we survived. We laugh about them when we talk about them. So this is not a fun thing, but this is how we have been seasoned to deal with the trauma. It's like we are watching a movie, like this happened. This is real, it happened. But we just end up laughing. So when you see us laughing, don't think that in 2025 we used to laugh at very horrible things. It's a way of reacting. And just to remind those who are just joining us, this is Purity Tumukwasibwe, is a human rights defender, is a trans woman, is a new mother to baby Asante, and is the executive director of Queerstion in Sweden. She's telling us about her journey in activism. So, bombastic magazine era is bringing you out. You're surrounded with all these challenges, yet you have to direct an entire, organization to fulfill its objectives. Please go ahead. How does it move? Where does it go to from there?
Yeah, from there, then I faced the worst insecurities, actually. And for me, this time, it was from my family.
Really, because family.
Yeah. So for me, if it wasn't my family, probably I would be thriving with others back home. But for me, the biggest transphobia and threats I was getting now were from my family. My father got to know that we were distributing magazines and around that time, we also there was also Pride that was, at I can't remember that beach that we used to go to.
And that is the first Pride.
Yeah, that's the first Pride.
Spearheaded by Kasha Jacqueline Nabagesera.
Yeah, exactly. So that Pride, I got excited as well. And, when the papers get out, and actually I'm also a part of it, and my family wasn't having it. And my dad wanted, to shoot me or kill me with a gun because he's a soldier, stuff like that. And so the insecurities mounted. And then at some point I had to go to Kenya to seek asylum.
That is how you ended up in Kenya.
Exactly.
Which year did you move to Kenya for asylum?
In 2016.
2016. And by that time, we had just been fighting a very deadly piece of legislation. So the environment had become even worse.
Yeah, exactly.
You were
Mm.
all brave to do that kind of work
Yeah.
during that
Mm.
period. It was a
Yeah,
really
that.
difficult period. And so in Uganda, you only worked with Bombastic magazine.
Yes, in the mainstream, really, I
Yeah.
worked mostly with Bombastic
Thank you
magazine.
so much for the work that you did with that magazine as the first executive director, coordinator for that. So you
Coordinator.
end up in Kenya. And when you get to Kenya,
Mm.
you left everything
Yeah.
behind.
Mm.
As a trans woman relocating to Kenya, it
Mm.
must have brought its own set of unique challenges,
Mm.
especially navigating a new culture.
Mm.
They also have their own legal framework.
Mm.
How did your gender identity shape your experience as a refugee?
Mm.
Like when you got in, and what were your hopes for finding both safety and visibility in your new home? Because very clearly you were not going to stop. Otherwise,
Yeah.
we would not be having you at Queerston right media
Mm.
right now. Like
Mm.
how was that getting into Kenya? You are now, I'm a trans woman.
Yeah. Mm.
Kenya has its legal framework that does not permit you to be yourself.
Mm.
How was that like?
Wow. My life changed quite a lot when I went to Kenya, really. I went to Kenya when I was angry and I wasn't scared of any consequences anymore. I had just lost a family that protected me for a long period of time.
Very clearly, you
Yeah.
were close.
Yeah, exactly. I had lost, not died, but lost my mom, who was my biggest support, even financially. I mean, I had worked, so I had some bits of, income for myself. But
Yes.
my mom was always, I was protected in that kind of sense. So when I lost that and I went to Kenya, I was like, okay, this is my only moment that I can actually be absolutely myself. So I went to Kenya with an open heart, but then also for me, when I was going to Kenya, I also went when I was a little privileged. I went when I had some money, and also I had people don't. It's disclaimer. I didn't steal. I needed the money. I got some money from my mom without her consent.
You got some money from your mama, yes, without her consent.
Yeah, exactly, without her consent, so that I can go to Kenya and thrive, And gladly, I also moved to Kenya when I had a car, so I sold it in Uganda and had to buy one in Kenya so that I am sure that when I'm moving on the streets, I'm safer.
Yes.
So then I went to Kenya, and the first thing that was in my mind was to register under UNHCR.
Right.
Also meet the community. I already knew the community was there, but I did not know how much suffering that was really. From the outside, it looked okay. And I thought I could actually thrive through it, But then when I got there, the first thing I did was also to rent a very expensive house, I could say, a safe house. For example, Kenyan houses are a little bit cheaper than when I moved to Kenya.
Yeah.
And my intention was to have, I didn't know it was going to be a safe house, but it was to house my trans friends who were homeless.
Right.
And that's what I did. So when I got there, I rented a house and I brought in my friends who were homeless, and we started living together, and then also registering and helping each other in one way or the other.
Registering for the refugee process.
Yeah, for the refugee process. And for me, when I met them, I had not understood how much turmoil and how much suffering that looks like.
Right.
Hopelessness. And I was like, oh my God, how can it be that what we see in the media is, yes, the LGBTQ persons, refugees in Kenya are suffering, but nobody talks about the magnitude of the suffering of the trans refugees.
Right.
It was downplayed in so many ways.
Yes.
And the trans refugees were being used in a way that they are the ones creating insecurities. amidst the LGBTQ refugees in Kenya, and also being reported.
Did you find that they had clumped LGBTIQ together, and yet the trans had very unique challenges that were being
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And at least the LGBTQ itself as refugees were
Yes.
a little bit more organized, and they were a little bit more empowered. They could go out there in the world, and though some of them could even go to Nairobi and work and find dirty small jobs to do,
Right,
and they
right.
were the ones expressing themselves, even when it comes to UNHCR representation or institutions that support refugees.
Yes.
They were the cisgender LGBTQ community.
Right.
The trans community didn't have voice, didn't have expertise. They didn't even know how to represent themselves. But also the suffering was so beyond that they didn't have any moment to even think about representing themselves. They were from one emergence to the other. One has been beaten on the streets. The other one has been thrown out of
Yes.
a house. The other one is like it was like a circus.
And paint the picture even more, because you mentioned that the cisgender queer people were able to go out and present themselves and ask for a job and for that, which was different from, because I want everybody to understand why it was even more difficult for a trans person.
Yeah, exactly. So the other cisgender queer persons could somehow closet themselves, look a particular way, and go out there and look for. Still, there are no jobs really for refugees. But if somebody needs somebody to clean their homes, somebody to
chance.
work in a shop, to all those other informal jobs, them become a barber in a salon. They were doing all that, but it's the trans community was stuck, just waiting for UNHCR to save them. And every time they tried to even aggressively or resiliently, let me not use a big word, resiliently go out there and also find something, then either they have been beaten, either they have been picked on the streets and taken to jail because they were also foreigners and stuff like that. It was so bad, Victor, in a way that I felt sorry for myself. That, okay, Purity, you are among like I said, even when I was working with Kasha, I wasn't outspoken. I was just doing my work, and then I was leaving, PR, public relations to somebody else. But in Kenya, I had to be the PR. I had to,
basically, you realized there was a gap.
There was a huge gap. And then when it came to Kakuma camp, I went to Kakuma camp to visit my friends there. And I haven't been in a place that is so hostile like Kakuma camp in my life. And sometimes I tell people to paint a picture that I know people think about, going to hell when you die, that you will, the fire will burn you. I am sorry, for some of us, we have already been to hell and we've seen the fire. That Kakuma camp you see in the picture, that is even a quarter of what is happening there, And at the same time, the trans refugees were always just hiding themselves under the tent because other refugees are going to attack them. And then everybody would think that actually they are a huge source of insecurity. So we were gaslighted in so many ways to keep indoors, to save the security of everybody else. And so that's even what it happened at UNHCR when it comes to representation and getting to know who we are. So many trans refugees are emergencies that should be resettled a safer place immediately. They are emergencies that should be getting safe, very, very safe accommodation from institutions immediately.
They are the most at risk among those at risk.
Exactly. And with all the refugees, regardless whether they are LGBTQ or not, that trans refugees are the most at risk in so many ways. So then for me, I now had to bring most of those that were vulnerable. Like I said, since I was a little privileged that could have, a safe house.
Yeah.
But then at some point the money got, I thought I was going to be in Kenya maybe for like 1 year or 2 years. Alas, it took longer. And so when the money, when the money was getting finished, we were also now organizing ourselves like, okay, girls, or, that's how we could call ourselves. We need to not just organize ourselves in terms of living together. We need to form community-based, groups or organizations that we can be able to organize and represent ourselves.
Right.
And so that's how my friends and I, Vanilla and Doreen, had to start Refugee Trans Initiative. That's how it came in the picture.
And that was, wow, that was the first trans-specific organization within the refugee community.
Exactly.
Amazing.
That was the first one. And Victor, I would love to tell you that we achieved a lot. In the background, sometimes these are unsung
please, you have the space here.
Yeah, but when we were doing that, I partnered with Moses Mbazila, who was also heading the refugee flag Kenya in
another refugee organization, queer refugee organization,
yeah,
but not trans-specific.
Not trans-specific.
So you partnered with them?
Yeah, and the reason why we partnered with them,
yes,
was to demonstrate and make our voices heard in an organized way, in a very not just with facts and systems that protects us as we, because we were tired.
Yes.
And for me, my biggest achievement is that my first demonstration was not only in Kenya, not only in Nairobi, it was also in Kakuma, a massive one. We were cleared by the police because we were getting clearance by the refugee flag Kakuma, headed by cisgender, in a way, queer people that they can't know who they are.
So this because this is good to document this. These demonstrations took place at the same time, or it was one after the other?
The first one took place at the same time.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah.
Very organized.
In Kakuma and in Nairobi.
Which year was that, Purity?
That was 2018.
2018, at the peak of the suffering, yes.
Peak of the suffering, yeah. So that 2018, I can say, my community used to tell me that I am friends with the prison is my other home, really, because what happened, I chose to instill. I'm sorry I had to do that. I chose to instill resilience in these girls and all the trans person, that okay, now it's a matter of life and death. We either die and we are erased, but then at least we have raised our voices. Let's reach out to big organizations. That's when Facebook Live was picking up. Let's document these things when we have live cameras that somebody else can hear. But let's have also structure of what do we want from UNHCR, what do we want from the Kenyan government, what do we want from the police, what kind of protection do we want? So before, it was just refugees not having enough capacity, just going there and expressing their needs informally. But for us, we had to do that. And it worked so well that all the refugees at that point were tired. The LGBT refugees were tired. And that solidarity that we did, it yielded fruits. We had to do now dialogues with UNHCR better, with and stuff like that. And I would love to tell you, my biggest achievement is when we got over, UNHCR got over 150 LGBTQ refugees and trans people from Kakuma camp and brought them to Nairobi and resettled them.
I think that you and that other group advocated for expedited processes for
Yes,
people at risk, for queer people
yes,
at risk, and not just
yes.
trans people. And
Mm,
please tell your story, even if it is even the past that are not trans specific.
mm,
It is your
mm,
work. It is a trans woman who did this work. History gets
mm,
distorted. Feel free
mm.
to record it here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I would love to upload those, other queer LGBTQ persons,
Mhm.
activists that actually joined us. I would
Yes.
love to tell you that our biggest support system was Moses Mbazila, who is a gay man, and he was
Yes.
our protection. He was our source of security in
Mm-hmm.
so many senses. And
Mm-hmm.
then together, then we had to make an impact in that kind of way. In fact, in 2019, that's when I was actually supposed to have traveled to the UK. I was supposed to be resettled in the UK. No, it was still 2018 actually. But Moses Mbazila, myself, and others like Doreen and many other resilient activists, we chose to say like, okay, now UNHCR can listen and we can have a dialogue, and they are now working. How
Mm.
about we first stay behind? We
Yeah,
first
I heard
settle.
of that heroic and very selfless act where
Yeah,
some of you leaders said we're
mm,
not leaving until everybody has left.
yeah, exactly.
And yet you
So
were all suffering in this
yeah,
mess. And as a
yeah,
trans woman, it was even worse. But you
mm,
decide, no,
yeah, exactly.
that's
Because
humanity.
Victor, I wouldn't also forgive myself if I had to just go and leave everybody else that doesn't have a voice at all, stuck, and then where we had gotten the movement, then it breaks and everything goes back to normal. So we resiliently said, okay, you have taken these ones, but then let's have a dialogue on how some us who are remaining behind, how are you going to actually take us to safety?
And at that moment, you're lobbying as RTI,
Yeah,
Refugee Trans Initiative, and
yeah.
the other organization.
And other organizations. Now we had also joined other organizations like Refugee Coalition of East Africa. I haven't talked much about it.
For
We
which
had,
you were a co-founder,
uh, yeah, of which I was also a co-founder,
right?
and it also was birthed out of those collaborations that were making great impact. So
Right.
now we were organizing ourselves,
Yeah. Yeah.
So we had to organize. We also knew the power of coalitions
Mhm.
after doing that. And so then we formed the Refugee Coalition of East Africa. Then I was in spearheading the communications. And so a lot of the communications, in fact, for me, what I am grateful about is that within our era is when the world got to know the exact picture of what happens in Kakuma and
Right.
in Nairobi, because
Right.
we were giving out statements as they are
Yes.
and well thought about,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but well, then it changed a little much more. So many other trans and other LGBTQ persons were being resettled.
Mm.
And at some point, we were also gaslighted. By the time I was living again another community, but at least I was happy that some had left. They promised us that, okay, you can leave
I
Purity,
think
and the rest are
that was great work that you did during
Mm,
that period, but
mm,
most importantly, rising up as a trans woman and
yeah,
realizing that something needs to be done and something
mm,
needs to be done differently
mm,
is a very important part of that story to know.
mm.
So
Thank you.
eventually,
Mm.
you left in which year?
Yeah, so eventually I left in 2021.
And by the time you left, were there other or how was the refugee trans movement in Kenya? Just the trans movement.
Mm.
Was there also an intersex movement at that point? Were you working on both issues? What was the
Mm.
situation like for trans
Mm.
people? What changed?
For me, what mostly changed that I am grateful about is organizing, capacity building, and also the community being able to understand that there is power in learning on how to manage who we are in a very organized way. The power of community-based organizations, the power of coalitions, the power of knowledge, the power of looking out for funding and getting projects that make sense, and also awakening, because trans refugees back in Kenya are quite brilliant in so many ways, but their self-esteem was numbed and left in the shutters, and they needed somebody to remind them that you can actually advocate for yourself. So now the spaces started being started being organized. We started getting funding from I would love to say that now Refugee Trans Initiative is taking care of itself in terms of finding funding, and even when the funding
and
is
more
less,
trans people are being held by the organization.
Yeah, exactly. So there is there's an organized way.
And just a very small question to ask: some trans people, refugees, are actually doing trans, gender affirming care. How was the situation during your time for those who were undergoing gender affirming care? Were there people doing hormones? Were there people who like what was the situation like in terms of gender affirmation and the care that comes with it? Was it there anyway?
It wasn't there. It wasn't there in any way. It was a wish, literally. Also from my side, and other trans persons who would have loved to have their transitioning journeys. There was not so much information. There was not so much where to find help, and we had not even we had lost kind of hope of actually even thinking about that. But you see, there is power in organizing. Then now we started, expanding ourselves to the Kenyan community. We had to reach out to Jinsi Yangu, and now they started collaborating with us. Now we knew that we can actually get support from them. We had to reach out to Ethan, Barbara,
the coalition.
So we had to bring Barbara on board, and all other trans organizations in Kenya.
Shout out to you, Barbara, and all the activists in Kenya who offer and have offered support to queer refugees.
And I would love to say that the trans organizations in Kenya, the Kenyan ones, they're quite helpful. Really, they were helpful in so many ways. Now, trans persons who really wanted trans healthcare services,
and there's more visibility now, because even after you left, I saw people like Julie. I saw I saw one that you call Mama Kambe, Anita. I saw a lot of proud trans refugees in Kenya. Doreen, people who could not hide anything about themselves, because that is who they are. And I think that was a great thing. I like to ask you these questions for those who are listening and watching, and for our future siblings and children that will be trans. I know some of these stories, but I really want it out here for people to really understand this situation. I have seen the growth of that movement with its challenges and its and its ups. I have watched a lot of it. Now, just in the interest of time, I would like us to go to Sweden. Purity, before we go to Sweden, just you, the person, and probably something that could encourage a trans person in the refugee process. Knowing about you and your journey, I saw you fighting for the survival of others. And you needed to survive yourself.
Yes.
I remember it was a very, very difficult time.
It was.
Even before we come to an end, Your story in Kenya as a transgender person and refugee is a story of resilience. But before the resilience, there's a lot of suffering. And it's not unique to you. It is the story of trans people, trans refugees in Kenya right now. Before we even move on to your, what I call glorious work in Sweden, I've been watching, please leave a message. Send a message to a trans woman or trans man or gender non-conforming person out there in Kenya or any other refugee camp in Africa that would encourage them. You know what they're going through. You know what they need to do. Speak to them, please.
One, I would love to remind them that their voices matters. Do not continue, please, seeking help. Demand it. Demand the help. It might not come immediately. Continue documenting your suffering. Documenting your suffering is quite important. You might not see the results immediately, but the more you document your suffering, the more you have accountability of your suffering, because somebody has to account for it. This transphobia and refugee phobia that and that we have been reduced to, those accountability is in documentation. Document every time you get attacked. Make an alarm. Document it. Talk about it. Do not despair at talking about exactly what your experiences are. There will always be some day where somebody comes to our rescue, because that's what we did. And secondly, please make sure that you think about collective advocacy and collective help. Protect your spaces. Protect your spaces that you have, because those spaces are the reasons why we thrived. Me as a trans woman, we could be suffering, but the moment we could have, for example, a trans night, we would have this moment to calm down our anxiety, to have support for each other. So continue holding those spaces even when it is not as healthy, or even when it's as hostile. There is always power in sharing pain together. But above it all, you deserve better. And I can tell you that when the day comes and you have to think about what you have had to go through, you also be proud of yourself that you actually resiliently chose to stay alive. Because I reached a point where I wanted to commit suicide, I should say, so many times. And so we have lost so many of our friends in the refugee community in Kenya to suicide. It is so harsh. It is so hostile. But please go out there and seek help. Make these trans organizations in Kenya and the queer spaces, make them uncomfortable. Reach out and say, I need help. I'm dying. Do not think about dying all by yourself, but at least try. So that is my message I could give them.
Thank you so much, Purity. And that message is a very important message, and it is from a very, very important source. You have lived this life. You have fought your way out. But some good things have happened. You are in Sweden now, and I am seeing you on flights everywhere. I'm seeing you training people everywhere. I'm seeing you empowering communities. There you are becoming a mother. Talk to us through your Swedish life, which I see as a second chance to life. How is work there? You're working with Queerstion Media. You work with Iglio. Please take us through the most important bits of your work in Sweden.
I feel quite privileged also that my work in Sweden also rotates around the community that I love so much.
Right.
And those are trans refugees mostly. At Queerstion Media, I am so privileged that I'm paid to do a job.
What is Queerstion Media?
Queerstion Media is a BIPOC trans organization based in Sweden. So we basically are a BIPOC trans organization, but it's more for refugees, BIPOC trans refugees. And it's a space, it's a space for our advocacy. It's a space for research. It's a space for media representation and community and a community. So we hold spaces for our own community.
So grateful that you fought through and got your life saved to get to this moment, because that's
Yeah.
us to a different level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I am quite so privileged that I have a paid work in an organization that is working on issues that
The very
I am
issues you're passionate about.
I'm passionate about, you know.
Right.
And so that's what we are doing at
We've
Queerstion
seen you
Media. We
doing
have so many.
anti-racism work also.
Yeah, we do also anti-racism work. We also do a lot of research together with the Immigration Board in Sweden and institutions also that work with asylum seekers and refugees in so many spaces. So we are a team divided in different structures that are supporting in different forums. And I am just their team leader. So that is Queerstion Media. I wish I had enough time to say more, but it's such a beautiful space, a healing space. Then for IGLIO, International Gay and Lesbian Youth Organization, I am their anti-racism consultant, and I work with their staff in their systems. I am from the research department, research and advocacy department. So we support their staff in their work plans to scrutinize and see how their work plans go with anti-racism structures and policies, and make sure that everything they are doing is on an intersectional, they have an intersectional diversity and inclusion approach to it. So that's what I do there. I'm also still very privileged to be contributing in that space, because also I bring in my experiences of racism in Sweden, even when everything seems glittering in Sweden. But you need to know that I just woke up early in the morning and, oh my gosh, I'm actually Black. I hadn't even thought about how Black I was until I came to Sweden. And then
I've seen
other...
you on board membership for trans. There's a word that I couldn't say. I think it's a Swedish word.
Yeah.
But talk to us through very quickly about the boards that you're on.
Yeah. So I serve on the board of Transgender Europe. And then I serve on the board of I just resigned from that role because I'm too busy. I'm also a parent. But I've been a board member of Transamans. Transamans is the umbrella trans organization in Sweden.
Wonderful.
So it's the umbrella trans organization in Sweden. But now I have more responsibility as a mother. Then I also serve on the board of Rainbow Refugees Sweden, which I'm also a co-founder. Rainbow Refugees Sweden.
Okay.
Where I'm also a co-founder of that space. And it's a beautiful space also for rainbow refugees and asylum seekers in that space.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So those are
it's been a lot of work. I've seen that. I don't even know which part of the organizations you're working with. It's just good work that we see, and thank you also for sharing what you do. It is very important for us not to just post flights and stuff, but also post exactly what we are doing as we represent people, so that it shows that we are representing people. Let them know what we are doing, and I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
Purity in Sweden. There is a very nice picture that I have seen of you, and you're wearing this magnificent dress full of flags and nations and rainbows and stars and moons and globes. What is this about? This is the dress. There it is on the...
Yeah, and that's me wearing it, actually.
We can't see the picture clearly, but that is you wearing the dress. Yes, there it is.
Yes. That is me. Well, Victor,
can you keep it on for a bit longer as she talks about it? What was that about?
The rainbow dress is for an organization in Amsterdam called the Rainbow Dress Foundation in Amsterdam, and it represents over 87 plus I don't know how many countries now in the world where it's illegal to be LGBTQ. So then all the time they look out for iconic and very inspiring trans models
Wow.
to represent that dress. So
Wow.
when you have an opportunity to represent, then that's really massive. And
We are
for
so
me,
proud of you.
yeah, and for me, how I represented 87 countries in the world where it is illegal to be LGBTQ was at World Pride in Sweden. And that's how I wore that dress. And I gave a speech in that dress. It's for me, it was the biggest moment of my life as a trans woman.
Do you have a video of that speech?
Yes, I have a video of that speech as well. It's
When you
on
don't
website.
mind, we can actually would be happy to share it whenever you feel that you can share it. And also consider sharing it with archives such as the Gay and Lesbian Archives. There are also trans archives in South Africa. These are things that we need to keep for our future and for the future generations. This is our power. This is our story, even if you carry the torch for that story. We're so
Absolutely.
proud of your purity. Whenever I
Thank
see
you.
that, I see you as a queen, as a like a queen, a queer queen. It's just so magnificent.
Thank you.
I just can't
Thank
stop. I could talk to you, purity, like forever. I
you.
think that just knowing where you come from in terms of the struggles and seeing where you are today, it is big. It gives us a lot of hope that we cannot just give up.
Thank you.
Wherever we are, we shouldn't give up. And I'm going to ask you to, because we have to, I know a lot of people, it's Friday evening, we want to go out or a drink, a quick, something for a drink or just to rest. I'll be requesting you to leave a message for trans people today and those who come in the future, especially activists. But before that, I would like to invite Lizo Teron from the backstage. Oh, she just reminded me to say a special thank you to the other foundation and Astrea Foundation for the financial support that you give for this work that we do, and also to Gender Dynamics in South Africa for the other support that you give to us. A shout out to those three entities. Liz Otero, do you mind coming on the stage and also meeting? And the reason I call you out, Lizo, today is because today you were our amazing studio person standing in for another team member. Please say hi to the viewers, but most importantly, to Purity, another mama from East Africa.
Hi, Purity. Yes, let
Hello.
me first start by greeting you. It is so fascinating, and as Victor rightly said, that surely you could speak hours and hours. We could have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, actually.
We will have a chapter 2. She has not exhausted it, trust me.
So you're not running away from us. We will get you back in. But anyway, yes, hello and thank you for your time today. And then also, obviously, I'm always very happy for our viewers, everyone who joined in the moment of the video screening as well. Obviously, as Victor mentioned, it remains on our website. We have a section about videos and recordings, and we have a YouTube channel as well. It's on our Facebook too, but obviously Facebook have its own rules. I think like after a month they remove it or whatever. So we actually want to really encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube, all the viewers, because then you can always have access to it. Also good news what happened this week on our side here in the trans and intersex history in Africa. But bear with us. The good news is bear also with us. We added the buttons on our website that you can access the website now, obviously in the English that it always were, and French, Portuguese, Swahili, and Arabic.
Wow.
So these are the languages. If you go to the top bar of the website, there's like a flags thing, and you just choose the one that you want. The reason I say bear with us, because as we all know, when information is AI generated, it might not be the cutting edge trans inclusive, intersex inclusive language we want. Any viewer, any person, if you came across an article or a place where there's a word or a definition and you're like, really? Tia, you are saying this? Please know it's not us, but report it. Make a screenshot of it and email it or send it to us, that we can fix it, because we obviously want to really have the language on our website, not only the vocabulary and grammar of the languages, but the actual meaning of the words. We want it obviously to honor the work we are doing. So please, but it's also with excitement that I announce it. So yes.
That's right. That's right. Thank you so much,
Amazing.
Mama Trans. For
Thank
those
you
of
so
you who
much.
just joined us for the first time, we call her Mama Trans because she's mama to so many of us. She has carried us. She has encouraged us. She has nurtured us into very, very beautiful people, very transome people. You know what I mean? Transome people. It's transomeness. But yeah, we'll be closing the show now to our viewers and listeners with a message from Purity. Purity, just speak to your trans people today and those who will discover this video in the future.
My message right now is that my trans community now, the anti-gender movements are now rising on a very huge speed, but they are not going to win. I know they are subduing us. I know they are organized. They want to take away the little joy or even the little rights that we had actually achieved. But now we have understood that we deserve to be here. And we are many now. We are more organized. So my message is, please do not despair. Just know that it's a step at a time. And where we are right now, they cannot destroy us completely. They will break our leg. We shall use the arms. And for my trans refugees in Kenya, I see you. And I know what you go through. I have been there. I hope that you can find solace and in the same community. And for the trans parents out there, sweethearts, let's take care of those kids and let's have those kids. Probably they will be in the future fighting for the rights that their parents didn't actually receive. So I am encouraging you that let's just resiliently go and take care of our babies, knowing that they are our future. Thank you.
Wow, that's very powerful. I had to leave you alone on the screen because this should be a message that we will cut out and, make sure that it reaches the ends of the earth. Thank you so much, Mama Asante. Purity, please thank your family for us. The four of you have actually made this time possible for all of us. And thank you for your love. Thank you for your care for the trans community. And thank you for the time that you have made out of your busy schedule to come and share your story with us and with the world. We will see you backstage.
Yeah.
You want to say goodbye, au revoir.
Yes.
And everybody, viewers and listeners, please remember that next May 17th international is Idaho Bit, International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, and Transphobia. Those phobias that eat us up. At TIHA, we will have a special broadcast the day before on May 16th. And we welcome everybody. It will be a community discussion about Idahobit in Africa. Please come. Those of you on the continent and those in the diaspora, you'll be able to come and engage in the conversation on the stage. Also, let us know that day how you have celebrated your International Trans Plus History Week. Which started on the 5th of May, will be ending on 11th May. Let us know what you have done in your community, for your community or for yourself in observing it. Thank you so much. Until next Friday, my name is Victor Mukasa, your host on the Trans Archival Conversations here at Trans and Intersex History Africa. Au revoir.